Hello, welcome to this dev diary about me explaining the Maui10 framework, some of the big changes, where we are heading and where we currently are. As you may have heard, this is now an open source project, so if you would like to collaborate, reach out to me and I'll get you up and running. So I will start showing you some of the screens. So the first thing to dive into is, I think, just a basic how everything is set up, and then from there we can continue. So default Mendix page, as you might see, there are some different levels, so I'll go into the levels, but the levels are your layouts. So from here you can select a 6.6 navigation or 6.6 layout, and these scroll individually. There's no use of scroll containers. This is all done with CSS and Flex, so that hopefully makes it a little bit more stable. Just pop this one back here. Okay, the second layer is the navigation layer. This will get bulked out slightly as we continue to build out the framework, but as you can see, it's a very basic main section which holds the different layouts. Where are we? Layouts here. So these live inside here. So we have a main. I will add a sticky top and a sticky bottom because I find that quite handy every now and then. And then we have these snippets. So these these pages, we have a main nav. These pages and snippets, these are owned by you or the client. These can be changed. The Maui layout is a module that doesn't really change. It doesn't really hold that much information, but it holds these different layouts, and then it links it to the snippets. So that's why there's a breakup between these two. All the CSS around the layouts has now been moved to the utility class, and that's just to make everything easier regarding updating and GitHub and collaboration. Okay, so I will now go back to this. So we have the level 2 navigation, which is actually your nav. We've turned this into a nav main and a nav secondary. Initially we had a nav top and a nav side, but those two should be interchangeable based on the layout. So if you have a top nav layout, then this would be a top nav. If it's a side nav, this will go to the side, and we can do that all with CSS layout grids, which is amazing. Then the last one is just your top level. I don't know if you guys know Pim van der Nol from Pronto, but there is a snippet will be here, and that's because some widgets need to trigger on the top level layout. So when you change pages, something happens within Mendix, but also when you change layouts, something happens. I'm not quite sure what. Quite sure a technical person can probably explain the differences, but these do set and trigger different nano flows if you want, and I believe they also change the selected navigation items if there are selected navigation items. So that's why we get this beautiful top level 1 top level container. So let's jump into some of, well, let's have a look what it looks like for now. I can show you guys. So it looks like this. At the moment there's not very much crazy happening, so that's why it looks like this. But we have some fundamentals. So the first one is, of course, the navigations that can expand and close. This is done through the adding of a class. Now we have a class here. We can add it, and it's nav main open. Most of the CSS we do is done by adding a class to the body. There are ways you could do it in line and use CSS variables, but at the moment most things benefit more from just using the class. So I'll go into that as well and dive a bit deeper once we get into the nitty-gritty of it. Probably not this session, but similarly, a lot of troubleshooting things. So like this, how does it open? How does it close? What are the classes on it? How does all of that work? And of course we have our beautiful buttons as a nice little test to see that everything is working correctly. So let's jump into some code. So we have a company core, which is everything that you want to change. Yeah, pretty much that. Everything you want to change. We have settings. So we actually turn, I think, everything from Atlas off. It's still in there. And that's just to make sure that when you download modules, they link to these Atlas attributes. And then we can remap them. Otherwise you get errors and it becomes a bit of a pain. We have all the imports. So the first one is just your variables. Nothing too crazy there. Then we have your actual CSS variables, which is this one. And these are all your colors and your font sizes. It's pretty much all we have at the moment. Interestingly, the colors, we can choose between using the luminance or a lightness shade. So there is quite a bit of a difference, and some people prefer luminance, other people prefer lightness, some people want it to be automated, other people want more control. So this is where you can change and select that. We also then include the tokens so that all the properties are mapped correctly, because we use primitives and tokens and all the fun stuff that most design systems are now using. I'll jump into that a little bit later as well, because we will need to remap some things and other things we won't. This is the tokens for the font sizes, and we have font size web, line height web, font size PWA, line height PWA. So those are the main attributes that I see being changed, is mostly just the font size and the line height between PWAs and web. There's nothing in here. Okay. So the next step is we have certain CC files, company core files, and that allows users or front-enders to pick certain styles. So if you want the date picker to work a certain way, then you can use that. If you want your button to be aligned, you select this one. Same with your layout. If you want a side over top, you can select this one. And then because we have so much standardization in the layouts, it is very, very simple to share layout themes with other brands and change that. I wouldn't say dynamically, but yeah, change it on the fly or change it in build time. So that's very handy. Also, it just makes everything standardized and makes it way easier for people to troubleshoot other aspects. One of the things I actually wanted to show is this nav basic. So because of how this all works, it's also really easy to troubleshoot. So you can turn it off, everything breaks, turn it back on, everything works again. It's this one, nav basic. I believe that's your navigation. So now there's absolutely zero styling on it, which is usually what we want when we're trying to override styling. And this way it makes it relatively easy to go in and change certain styles, such as this one, where we change the default style to align. Okay, so that what else do we have? Then we can go into here. So this is the Maui utility, and this is where almost everything now lives. Previously, some stuff used to live in company core, but we have cleaned that up and moved a lot of responsibility into the Maui utility classes, especially with this ability to now select and copy what you are using. So here we can go into the tokens, because I think that's probably one of the more interesting ones. And I'm actually thinking maybe go in here. No. Yeah, we'll go in here. So the base primitives is 4, and this is similar to how people use ems instead of pixels. Is you have a standard value, and then based on that standard value, everything trickles through. This also means that if you want to make your website larger, you can just change this value. And then I'm going to see if I can actually do that without breaking everything. 2. Oh, look at that. That all works. That's fun. So, oh, that's a bit too much. Pop it back to 4. The reason I like 4 is because it's a nice number, and because it means that we can divide it equally, and that means that the text size is not this weird times 4 version, but it's actually just 1. Because oftentimes people and brands have certain font sizes that's not really in a system. So it could just be like, oh, this one's 19 or 17 or whatever. And then instead of doing hardcore math, I can just punch it in. Then we have spacing. Spacing is not anything super crazy, I don't believe. It's mostly used for paddings and gaps. We barely use margins anymore. Similarly, we've got some border radii, border radiuses, and then that's pretty much it. These are the values we use. From this, we translate this into tokens. So a token is something that has a very specific value in it that is based off of something that is a system. Like this, we can show you that we have a CL. So all CSS variables have a prefix, either CL, I'll type it here, CL for color, oh no, it's not going well, CL, SZ for size, and SH for shorthand. So shorthand we often use for things like borders and shadows. I think those are the only main 2 that we use the shorthand for. Other than that, everything is color. Then we use the actual attribute, the CSS attribute. So it's color, background color, and then what background color do you want? Well, we want the one from the navigation, from the main navigation. We want the hover, the active, or the default. And this way, we can quite easily hook up certain CSS variables to certain attributes, but we can also override them either in the runtime, which I find very interesting, or in the build time, which we were doing previously with the tokens. So here you can see that the size of the navigation is 72, and when it's open it's 252, so that's this. So it just basically looks at what this is. We get this now, this new body class. Then in our level 1, I believe, one of these things changes, and then it gets bigger. Is it maybe this one? Main nav, no. Oh, here we go. It's this width, 72 pixels, and now it's 252 pixels. So there's a bit of magic going on there. But these are those variables: size, width, nav, main, open. So that's how we handle that. Similarly, background color, nav, secondary, more colors. So color is actually for text. as some of us nerds may know, there's a difference between color and background color. We get into the fonts. So these are the basic fonts. Also shorthand because we have multiple sizes, colors, and as you can see, they all just link back to different primitives. Yeah, shorthand for different shadows, etc. So what that also means is if you, for instance, don't like any of these default values, which is probably more often than not, then you can just go ahead and we can change some of them. So I am going to make this one when it's small. Instead of having it 72 pixels, we should be able to turn it into 60 pixels. So I go back to my main company core. I say here, any variables I'd like to override. Let's make this one not 72, something visible, 24. Save it, and then hopefully it all works, which it does. Okay, so why is this important? It's important because if we all use these standardized values, it means that it's a lot easier to chop and change design systems. It's a lot easier to share design systems. It's a lot easier to make design systems or make components that work with your design systems because it's all, to a large degree, standardized. And that's one of the things that I am, I'd say, passionate about. I can use that word, passionate. Is the standardization of all these variables, because it also means that when you are working on a widget, creating a widget, you could use these and say, hey, look, I do need a background color, and well, I'm not navigation tree, but I'm making maybe a new thing. So maybe I will use a new word here and use the hover and active or expanded or other ones. Here we also have bottom and top and X, and there's a Y in here somewhere as well. X, Y. Those are some other variables we use. This is mostly for your spacing, as you can see, spacing, small, medium, and you can see here the vertical spacing, and we use XX, small. So this is all just little things. I wonder if I actually have the inputs. No, I don't have any input fields in here yet. Okay, so we've got that. Typography, similar. We just go through, make sure that everything is hooked up. Glyph icons and mapping. This is another interesting thing that we do. I wonder if I can align this. Oh, that'll break. No, that all breaks everything. So what's happening here? So the glyph icons are loaded in, sort of. They're loaded in through Atlas. And because Atlas is turned off, we don't get any glyph icons. We don't get any icons at all. And I will find our page with buttons. So here, this is a beautiful glyph icon of a user. I just wanted to show you guys what's going on. So we get this glyph icon. Because we don't load anything from Atlas in, all we get is the class name, which is perfect. That's what we need. And we get to see it in Mendix, which is another awesome bonus. Then in here, we can remap. I'm not sure which one we had there. User. We can remap it to a font awesome icon. And the cool thing about font awesome icons is that they are also reasonably dynamic. So here's the little bit of script where we go through each and we say if it's a glyph icon, extend font awesome and then the name of this one. So why is font awesome so awesome? Well, for me, it's because you can change the type of icon based on CSS classes, which I really like. It's a font icon, which I really like because it means it can dynamically change colors. And it can be a line icon or a regular icon based on the font weight. So it gives you a lot of control about icons. And what I like to do is when a button gets quite small or a label is quite small, I like to make these ones solid, and then if they get bigger, I like to use them lined. It's just something that I like to do, and this gives me the flexibility to do that, which is really cool. Another awesome thing that I've seen Sophie do before is that you can create an icon, and it could be called icon context. And the icon context is an interesting paradigm that we use. I think it's a paradigm, but you have an icon context that doesn't have an icon by itself. But when it is nested inside a class, context dash danger, context success, it can then dynamically change. And this is really powerful within Mendix because we have dynamic classes. So you can have a card that I'll make later, and when you add the context danger to it, the card will slightly become red, and if there are any context icons in there, they will change. And this is extra handy when you have abstract terms but the icons haven't been set yet. Then you can already start building. So for instance, a hospital, you may have an EEG machine or an X-ray machine or a whole bunch of different machines. We were actually doing one in production in a production factory, and they have all these very specific words, and there aren't really any good icons for them. So we just add some really basic icons, spend 5 minutes, and we tell them and said, these are the icons you can use. Go find some cool icons, and they usually come back within a day and have these really cool icons. And then we can just remap them in the CSS by saying, hey, if it's context EEG machine, then use this icon. And that way it's quite easy to make very lean, very engaging user interfaces using things like a list view and then setting a class based on an enumeration that says something about what that is. I hope I'm making sense. I have to show you some good examples. Another thing I just wanted to show you real quickly is we've got cards that are clickable and panels that just hold information. And that is so far for this dev diary. It's gone a bit long. It's 22 minutes, which is quite a bit of a session. But I hope you guys enjoy it. And once we get this GitHub all up and running, which I've tested, and it works, because there's now 2 GitHubs, because your Mendix project is a GitHub, I will share some more things. I'm also looking for some different types of layouts to really test and put it through the ringer. See where it breaks, see where it excels. So if other people could send me some unique layouts, unique things I've run into in the past, that would be appreciated. And yeah, I look forward to building this out and building out some more widgets. So cool, let me know.